Churches and Major League Baseball teams have something in common. They both have a farm system to raise people up to be ready for prime time. Major League Baseball teams have minor league teams where the people go who are not quite ready for the majors but are very talented people. They need some experience, they need some time to develop, they need some coaching to get them ready for the big times. Churches have something very similar. I want to be fair to the people who are in the middle of this process because it's kind of what's been handed to them, but also with a vision for something a little more healthy for the future. I'm going to discuss this and then talk about a better way at the end. So think about your church experience for a moment. Think about growing up in church if you did. Think about the number of different preachers you had, different ministers or pastors, whatever you want to call them, had over time. The average amount of time for turnover is about 4 years, 5 years, sometimes even up to 7 years. It's pretty unusual for a minister to be there 10 years, 20 years. There are people who've been there for 40, 50 years. That does happen, but it's very unusual. There's a rapid turnover in our churches. And there's a lot of reasons why preachers leave when they do. Sometimes they're forced out, sometimes they choose to leave. But we have built a system that encourages the turnover. Let me explain. There's two perspectives. One is the minister's perspective, one is the church's perspective. And we're going to start with the minister's perspective. So you want to be a preacher. You go to preaching school, you go to Bible college, you go to university, you go to seminary, you get a degree. And in the midst of all this, you get married, maybe you're looking for your first paid part-time ministry position while you're getting your degree or getting your certification. So you may be preaching for like a tiny little country church that understands that you're just beginning and they're okay with that because they're paying you very, very little to be there just on Sunday. That's about it. When you graduate, you are now married, you're looking for your first full-time job. You have very little experience, no experience in full-time ministry. So that limits the opportunities that stand in front of you with ministry as a profession, as a vocation. And so you're going to begin climbing the ministerial ladder. You start in the farm leagues, you start in the minors, and you begin with small churches that really can't pay an awful lot. They maybe give you a parsonage to live in, a home that's on the church property, which is a whole nother ball of wax. You know, it's like people knocking on your door all hours of the night. But the church doesn't have to pay you as much because they offer the housing. Now, at the same time, you're not building equity because you're not having to pay for the housing. You don't own the home. You don't own the appreciation of the home itself. And so you're kind of getting put behind already. And now maybe you have a kid in the mix, a baby, and your expenses are going up to where the point that this little church gave you an opportunity. You had 0 years of full-time experience. Now you've got 2 or 3 years of experience. And so they gave you a chance. They're lovely people. Nothing wrong, sinful with what I'm talking about. It's just the system that we've set up. And so you begin looking, you begin applying for a bigger church, and you make that move after a couple of years. Your baby is now a couple of years old. You've moved up to a larger church. You've moved up to a larger role. You're getting some benefits, maybe. You're getting definitely more pay along the way. And you're going to continue on this cycle that about every 4 or 5 years, as your life changes, now you have a second kid, now you're trying to pay off your student loans, whatever. Your expenses are going up, inflation's going up, but the salary is just not cutting it. So you continue to climb this ladder. And not only are you doing it out of necessity, but also just in your own soul, it feels good to be a part of a bigger church. It feels good to be a part of something that has grown and is larger and has a better facility and all that sort of thing. But you're moving up. You get the idea. And you probably watched this your whole life but never really thought about it. And some of that depends on the size of the church where you grew up. It was a tiny country church. You may have had a series of people in school or just out of school come to preach. If you're in a very large church, think about the track record of the people who were hired. They often came from smaller churches and worked their way up to the church that you attended. Now that's the minister's side of things. There is the church's side of this story. Every story has two sides. Now, since churches typically do not grow their own leadership from within, but hire their leadership from without, there is no pipeline to develop leaders, and that means that the church has to look to the outside to find the next talent. And since churches are hiring someone every 4 to 7 years, the turnover in this church is frequent enough that now you're looking again. A few more years later, you're looking again. 4 or 5 more years later, looking again. There's a constant, inevitable turnover in the system that we have created. We chose this system, by the way. This is not found in the Bible. This is our choice. We are choosing this when we do it. And again, since there's no one to hire from within, knowing professional, all the qualifications of 3 to 5 years, and et cetera, et cetera. Qualifications, even Jesus didn't have more than 3 years of experience in the ministry. Paul wasn't married, and neither was Jesus. So these guys wouldn't even meet the qualifications on the ad that's put out. And you also won't find spiritual disciplines in the ad. You might not even find spiritual maturity in the ad. You typically find sound doctrine and evangelistic spirit or something like that. You put out the ad. You're looking for the next person. You begin talking to people, networking, trying to find out who is out there, who is looking, who is quality. Gather up a search team. Begin scouring the network for the next person. Narrow it down to a couple of people, right? And you know the process. You've seen this happen over and over. Maybe you've been on the search committee. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not condemning that. It's a system that we have. I think there's a better way. The hire is made, the move is made, transition happens, families uprooted, families rerouted, over and over and over and over and over and over again, okay? Every few years you're going to do it again. What you end up with is someone who doesn't know the community from the outside, someone who doesn't know the congregation, didn't grow up there, someone who needs a few years to learn the ropes, find out where the landmines are. You have kids who've been uprooted from their friends and school systems, replaced in a new place, they need time to adjust. And about the time you finally get traction, at about that 3, 4, 5 year mark, you uproot and go someplace else. That's the average. Here's the $1 million question. Where is this found in the Bible? It's not found in the Bible. We created the system, and we live with the results of the system that we created. We can choose a different system. We are not stuck with the system that we have. I'm going to advocate here for a different model, a different system that I think has more biblical support and is also practically better in many instances. Always exceptions. Because what we've seen has led to things like ill-equipped volunteers, ill-equipped leaders, anemic congregations, lack of spiritual maturity because you pay that person to do those things for you, and now you're off the hook. But that's not what the kingdom was ever about. We've allowed this to take place for far too long. There's a better way. And the better way is raise up leaders from within. Have a leadership pipeline, a leadership development process. I wouldn't say a system necessarily, although you could have a system that is developing leaders for the next generation, the one after that, raising up leaders to send out on mission to other places, to be leaders in other congregations. I mean, imagine a leadership pipeline factory in your church that's actually feeding other churches in a healthy kind of way in that local community. And it's better because now this person grew up there. They know the lay of the land. They know where the landmines are. They know who the power brokers are. They know where the skeletons are found. They love the church anyway. And they're not afraid of losing their job because it's not a climb the ladder kind of thing that they invested so much to get to this point. There's so much on the line. Better not get fired now because you were raised up from within. In fact, you may not get paid at all, maybe just a small amount. But you know the community, you know the congregation, and you love the community. You love the congregation. These are your people. It's nothing like ministering in your own location. Although Jesus said, a prophet is never honored in his own hometown. I get that. But sometimes people transplant out to go up the corporate ladder and farm league ladder and truly never develop a love for the people or the location where they find themselves. And that's really a shame. If we're going to make a change, obviously it requires doing things differently. If we're going to have a leadership pipeline, you can't keep doing what you're doing if it hasn't already resulted in a leadership pipeline. So what are we talking about? Things like mentoring, older with the younger. Read Timothy and Titus. It's all over the New Testament. Mentoring / apprenticing / discipling. Take people with you when you go do something that other people should learn how to do. We're going to train skills. We're going to teach the scriptures. We're going to encourage the faith. We're going to tell testimonies and the power of prayer and God's answer to prayer so that people make the connection between their everyday life and what's happening on Sunday. We as a church prayed all week about this, and here is what happened. Committed to prayer and committed specifically to praying for mission. There's more to it than this. It needs to be simple, but if you need a helping hand, I'm linking to a website below. It's a ministry I've just started to help people get equipped, help churches also get equipped to learn the skills that are needed to make the kind of impact God has called us to. So, appreciate you watching. Hit that like button, watch another video. I'm putting up another one here about church and some of the issues with church. Church is wonderful. I'm not being condemning of anyone to hell or anything like that. I just think there's a better way. And we need to look at the structures and systems in place that we chose, take ownership of it, repent of whatever we need to repent of, and move in a healthier way. But we need to be kind and merciful to the people who are in the pre-existing system until we have a better way that becomes more normal. So y'all take care. Watch this one next. Talk again soon.